I had some Orlick golden slice knocking around. I think that's in a bag outside, so might have to crack it in. Alright, so afternoon folks, hope you're well. I haven't opened a tin of Orlick golden sliced 50 gram for a long time. So I think I'm going to crack one. This will have the regular slices in there, the regular flakes. We'll see what it's about. Let's see if there's any difference really. I saw Mark Welsh Piper show a picture of some aged versus jar aged versus tin aged, which was interesting. Oh, it smells amazing. Don't know what happened to this lot. This reminds me, the aroma on this tin reminds me of a tin of Dunhill Navy rolls, deluxe Navy rolls from 2011. So Dunhill, not Peterson. And I opened, it was 2011 dated, and I opened it in around 2019, 2020, something like that. So it had about 7 or 8 years, and it had exactly the same smell, which is like dried apricots, that sweet sort of tangy sweetness, and that's what I'm getting on this. Fantastic, nice soft flakes. Oh, it's got an amazing aroma, absolutely stunning. That's great. And there's a little bit of humidity in there, not much, so that will be ready literally in a minute or two. Hi Chip, how you doing? What I need is a jar. Trying to remember which jar I used for OGS before. It was the spring lid, wasn't it? Yeah, this was it. Lovely jubbly. That's a 2019 tin. So how are we all doing? Everybody been enjoying their summer vacations, if you went away or didn't go away? Sometimes if you don't go away, it's even nicer because it's just quiet. All the roads are empty, shops are empty, and you can just get about and do stuff in relative peace and quiet. So I'm working on a pipe, well I will be working on a pipe today, which is actually inspired by a Sixton Everson pipe. This is the pipe that I'm looking at, and It's not going to be exactly like that because I won't have that sized shank. It's going to be a relatively short shank. But I've got a really nice piece of ebonite with some nice patterning in there, and I've deliberately used a wide diameter so that I can actually shape this, and I want to taper it out to make it wider. Can't make it too long, the taper, because it's a relatively sort of average size pipe. It's not small, it's not large, but alright, let's see what this oily golden sliced is like. I actually didn't even get to smoke a pipe yesterday. I finished off a cigar which I'd started the day before. At this moment in time, it's very thin, the flavour. It's actually quite bland, which is quite surprising because the aroma was amazing. It's more like it, but it's quite a savoury flavour, but it's smooth. A little bit of oil as well on the tongue. Just put the extractor on. Here, Jeffrey. La Finca. It doesn't ring a bell. I mean, it's possible that I've had one, the odd one, but it doesn't ring a bell, no. What can you tell me about them? I assume there's a reason why you ask. JR's, right, JR cigars. Could well be that it's a line that they've agreed to sort of run as a separate line. Just bear with me 1 second because my daughter needs me to get an Uber. Hello. Hi. Okay, I'm live, so just tell me, you need the Uber now? Well, I don't know, I haven't looked, have I? And where's it going to? The station? Oh, all right, okay, 1 second. 2 minutes away, £7.91. Did I book it or not? What? Yeah, sure. Sorry to keep you guys. Be with you in a sec. Hey Radu, how you doing? What do you call budget, Jeffrey? What kind of money are we talking about? $1.50, wow. I'm doing all right, Radu. Was away last week in the countryside, which was very nice. And got back on the saddle yesterday, made a pipe which came out really beautiful. That sold pretty much straight away. All right. I think what this needs, even though it smells really good, this Lathe golden sliced, it needs a bit of time. Hopefully the time in the jar will help. But I stand by, so far anyway, we'll see how it develops in the jar, but I stand by what I've said, which is the 100-gram tins for me work better. They just seem better to me. But this, although it's a 2019, it should be better. It just goes to show you it's a natural product, and I think when you have tobaccos which are flavored, you get consistency because you're tasting the flavor. When you're dealing with natural product, there's going to be diversity in the flavors over time. There's going to be variety because it's natural. So each crop is going to be slightly different, and you do taste the difference. There's no question about it. Excuse me just a sec. Hey Mike, how you doing? Be like the old days when I would have a pipe first before starting. Used to do that in the garage more, but haven't had a pipe yet today besides for this, so I wanted to have a little bit of a bowl before I get started. Now then, the big lad. Hey up. How you doing, Phil? starting to taste quite a bit better now as I'm getting down the bowl. Yeah. 1 second. It says 1 minute. 5. It says he's meeting up. Living the dream. Glad to hear it. Alright, I want to get started, but it's actually starting to taste good now, so just give me a minute to enjoy this. How's the lathe coming on, Phil? The chuck. The chuck. The chuck. Phil's putting together his own lathe, his own pipe making lathe. Well, he's got the lathe, but a pipe making chuck that will hold a block of briar. Whilst I was away, not being that far away from Phil, there was a small chance that we were going to meet up, but it didn't quite work out. But I hope in the not too distant future to make it up to Phil's and maybe spend an afternoon with him. I'd really want to do that. So hopefully when Phil's not so busy making his millions, he might find some time to spare for his old mate. And he's going in the background. With his chuckle that only Phil can do. He's doing the electrics, right? Well, if I can make enough money over the next week or two, I'm planning on redoing this room again. Whilst I'm going to have my daughter with me helping me. She helped me last time when I did the room. And she was really very, very good at it. She's 15 years old. But she's a natural apprentice. She was phenomenal at predicting what I needed next. And whether it was a screw, a hammer, a drill, no matter what it was there waiting for me in her hand, ready for me to do the next move. So I really want to try and do it while she's still on holiday break from school. I want to strip this all out again. It'll look roughly the same, but I want to put different workbenches in. So not as deep because it takes up too much of the room. I'll probably have them just deep enough to hold the machinery that I want to have on them, and deep enough for me to get drawers underneath. The drawers that I've got here, they're essentially kitchen drawers, which are all very nice, but they're not practical. They're too deep and stuff just flies around in there, and it's, for some reason, the drawer insides are sort of at an angle, so nothing stands up straight. They're a bit stupid. So what I'm going to do is probably get some of the, the workshop chest of drawers with the ball bearing sort of guided drawers. There's a very expensive make, but I don't need to get the very expensive ones. I can't remember what it's called. The red ones that the workshops have. But you can get cheaper versions of them. So I want to get maybe three of those. So I'll be able to keep all my ebonite rods which I've got dotted around all over the place. I've got some over here on the workbench, I've got some underneath the workbench over there, I've got some in a drawer in a different room. So it'll be nice to be able to have that all together and to be able to choose stuff. It'll also mean that, if, for instance, if I'm doing a commission and somebody wants to know what rods I've got, I could literally just hold the camera, open up drawers and show them all the different rods that I've got. That would be quite cool. And just everything that I've got lying around here, which is taking up so much room, hopefully I'll be able to accommodate it better. Ideally, what I'd like to do is have just an L shape, and hopefully this big lathe I'll probably put over here. I'm going to get rid of this as my desk area, and hopefully the big lathe comes here, but because it's all going to be one long length, I'm hoping that I'll still be able to get so there's 3 machines that I want to accommodate. I've got the big disc sander, which is behind my second lathe. I would like to have that in front so that I can access it easily. I have the bandsaw, and I have a disc grinder for sharpening my tools, which I have underneath the lathe, which I only bring out as and when I need it. But it would be nice to have it situated permanently. So what I might do is, on the other wall where the lathe is now, I might do a very, very narrow shelf, not a cupboard, just a shelf, to take those machines like the bandsaw and the disc grinder, because they don't take up that much room. Well, the bandsaw maybe does take a bit more up, so I might not keep that there. But anyway, I'm gonna sort of draw it out first and then take it from there. And I was thinking of getting, instead of using this, which is 18mm ply, which is very nice wood to work with, but I think for the actual bench itself I might get some kitchen worktop. So that's thick, and I can, when I go to buy it from B&Q or one of these places, I can get them to cut it to the exact size that I want. It'll also be man enough to support the lathe. Obviously it has to be supported underneath, but still, because I'll get the thicker worktop. You can get 20mm, I think, and 30mm, maybe even 40mm, I can't remember, but I'll get the thicker one anyway. What I really want to do with you, Phil, as I've said, is I want to go shooting. I've only once ever shot in my life before, and that was in Paddington Police Station, believe it or not. Probably wasn't even legal at the time, but we don't expect the police always to behave legally, do we? That just wouldn't be British. I was in my teens at the time, and I have a cousin, or a second cousin, who used to be an arms dealer. I mean, an official arms dealer. He used to deal in weapons. And I remember going down to the basement of his father's house, and he had a strong room built in the basement, under the staircase, and it was just basically a glorified cupboard, but he had a steel door fitted to it. A strong room, essentially. And he had some serious hardware in there. So he used to be all matey, all pally with the police at Paddington, because Paddington is the sort of really high up on the hierarchy of baddies, of criminals. So, for instance, if they have somebody who's arrested on an anti-terrorism act and stuff like that, they'd usually get held at Paddington. At least that was the case in those days. I don't know if it is now. But at Paddington, I don't know if it's still the case, but in those days, you're talking about 30 odd years ago, there was a shooting range on the top floor of the station, of the cop shop. And when I went in there, it kind of reminded me of a bowling alley, 10-pin bowling. So you've got this sort of long run. It's quite a big room actually. It's quite wide, and you've got this long run, you know, with sort of wooden slatted kind of floor almost. And at the end you'd have the targets with a metal sheet which was angled so that when the bullets went through the target, it hit the metal sheet and then rebounded downwards because it was angled that way so that it could never rebound back at you. And so my cousin asks me, do you want to shoot something? So I was very hesitant at the time. I was a very sort of shy, I wouldn't say so much shy, but I was just quite reserved. It wasn't the thing which I expected to do. But anyway, he says, shoot a pistol. So one of his mates, a copper, gives me a pistol, but this was a Dirty Harry kind of pistol. It was huge. I don't know which one it was, but very, very big pistol. And he said to me, watch out for the recoil. Anyway, so he told me how to hold it. The only thing I'd shot before that was, which I actually still have, was a ball bearing air pistol. It looked a bit like a Luger. I still have it out in the garage. You know, it's one of these things where you pull down a lever to crank it to fill the air chamber, and it's a lovely gun. It's got a beautiful grip on it. I really enjoyed that. I'm not into guns, I never have been. I just had that one air pistol which I've always had. I've never really looked into getting anything else. It's just not, I mean, last time I fired it was years ago. I say I'm not a gun guy, anyway, so the guy gives me this huge pistol, and he did not expect me to have any idea how to fire it, but having played around with this air pistol, even though recoil and all that kind of thing is non-existent virtually, and the weight of it is nothing compared to this pistol that I had, I still had some idea of how to hold it and how to aim using the little sights and that kind of thing, and they were amazed that I actually hit the target. It was very exhilarating, I will tell you that. I think it was a revolver, so I think there was probably six bullets in there. I'm not sure if he gave me the full 6 or just a couple, I don't remember. But it was very exhilarating. I know you have a different range of guns, Phil. We've seen your little arsenal there. £5 for 50 rounds. Wow, that's cheap. I guess so, yeah. £5 was a fair bit of money in those days. 1985. Yeah, so that would have been just before that happened with me. When I went there, I was born in '69, so I must have been hitting around the 20 sort of age, somewhere between 8. I was probably after 20 already. So closer to 1990 maybe. Not that far away from that date. Alright, so I'm going to move over to the lathe. I'm going to start off with the stem. I always start off with a stem, whether it's a hand cut one or whether it's a hand finished one. I always start with a so that would be one that I'd hand finish, but drilling's already done in that. It's a blank. I still do a lot of work to this, to the button, to the slotting. Sometimes I'll trim this down to make it shorter, depending on the design of the pipe. But the reason why I do it first is because 99 out of 100 times I'm doing a 9mm pipe. And being 9mm, I've got to make sure that the filter fits. Every pipe is slightly different. So when I'm drilling the mortise, I need to drill it only deep enough to accommodate the filter. And it's pretty much although it's very similar, but I want to try and avoid as much as possible there being too much play in the mortise, so that the filter shoots backwards and forwards. It can happen, you know. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It does happen. It's largely irrelevant, because once you load the pipe, that friction counteracts that, and it doesn't shoot backwards and forwards. But what you certainly don't want to do is to do it too short, so that when you've got the filter in, you can't actually close the joint between the tenon and the shank face. So I always do the thing first, drill it and get the tenon in, so that I can put the filter in. All the other work, the shaping, the button and all of that, I do later on. But just the drilling, so the draft hole and the tenon goes in first always. So the first thing I do is face off both ends, and then drill the draft, and then drill the mortise. No, actually I drill the mortise first, usually. Right, I think this bowl is done. It is now. There was a little bit left in there actually, but it's all come out. So let's get on with it in earnest. Actually, what I'll do first is cut the block. Let's see if I can perch you somewhere. I'll just hand hold you. Okay. All right. Fill. This gets used every day, as you know, and really been a godsend. Phil put this bolt on here basically so that it could screw onto the headstock. Previously it just had a post coming out, which wasn't ideal, and did a fantastic job on that. I think I might need to get this looked at, because it makes quite a bit of a rattling noise. I don't know if that's normal with lathes, but okay, that's just the noise of the chuck. But I'll take it off again. Let me know what you think. I'll turn it on. Maybe it'll only do it under load. We'll see. Yeah, it probably only does it under load. So the faceting on this one, Mike, is going to be not like a hexagon or anything like that. It's going to have the two sides are going to be oval with a facet along the spine, rather than we usually get it on the side. I'm doing it the other way, so it'll be like an oval shape and then a facet which runs the whole underneath of it, and then on the back of the bowl running up, and it's going to create this kind of almost square shape which is going to run into the stem. So the saddle bit of the stem is going to have that faceting all the way up to it as well. So I've got the idea in mind. We'll see how it plays out in practice. Yeah, so this machine has actually got a 5-year guarantee, so if it is the bearing, then I hope that they will honour that. Does it make sense that it would only make the noise under bearing when it's got stuff on it? I mean, this is just the jaws moving, but I'm pretty sure that the actual lathe makes a noise. The only problem with this is if it does have to get looked at, it's impossible to ship this. It weighs an absolute ton. And what I would need ideally is for them to send an engineer down and do the work here. Whether they would do that or not, I don't know. Or at least to send a courier to come pick it up. I did have that when I bought a metal lathe. I only used it for literally for 10 minutes and then sent it back. And they sent somebody to collect it, which was very good. So I'm just facing off the rod at the moment. So in the old days, how fine that is, you get used to doing that with the thing, and you can really do very close work. What normally you would rely on a metal lathe for this kind of work. But with practice, you can do pretty detailed work on a wood lathe as well. See you, Mike. In the old days, when I originally started making a pipe, I used to use Forstner bits always to face off the shank. I used to always use these kind of things, and they actually work very, very well. The problem with it being is that over time they wear out, so you have to keep replacing them unless you know how to sharpen them. But developing my skill in doing that with a tool by hand, it just saves a lot of hassle, a lot of time. And you can actually, sometimes you want to bevel it a little bit, sometimes depending on the shape of your shank face. You know, sometimes you've got a very small curve to the face, so you can do that, the opposite, sort of convex and concave, depending on which one it is, and you can do that on the face of the stem as well, which is, so doing it by hand definitely has its advantages. Where's my file? Ciao Mario. It was my pleasure. It really was. It was a beautiful part of the world. And yeah, it was just a delight to be there. I would go back to that area again in a heartbeat. Maybe in a different house, but I would definitely go back there. I mean, we had a whole to do with the landlord, with the owner, because when the kids used the shower, the water went all over the place. The bathroom's so badly designed. I mean, we're not messy people as such, and I'd like to think that we're you know, decent enough to care about other people's property. So I don't think we were in any way, shape or form negligent, but so essentially what happened was that the bathroom, the water went all over the place. So the way the shower cubicle was designed was you have 4 glass walls, well 3, one of them is the wall where the shower is hanging, but one of the walls is a glass door which is hinged in the middle, and then there's a gap between the end of the door and the next piece of glass. So there's actually a gap of about 10 inches, the full height of the shower, and you can't close that. So you're supposed to sort of close the door over on an angle so water doesn't get past it, but it doesn't actually work because they had 2 shower heads, one a rainfall one in the middle and one a handheld one, and whenever you did it, water always got out. So obviously the second time we realized that, we put towels and everything around to stop it happening again, but then the first time it happened, you know, there was water all over the place and it got into the carpet and whatnot, and the bathroom itself had a wooden floor, a wooden laminate floor, which is very stupid to have in a bathroom. Anyway, so we got a message from the agency that the landlord's been to the property and they're not happy because the carpet is wet and it's stained and it's going to need to get cleaned. So I explained the whole situation. I said, to be honest, it's very badly designed. They didn't put any warning signs up, for instance, to say that there was a problem and that if you're not careful, water's going to go all over the place. And it's a silly design. And I said, the landlord's at liberty, obviously, to design it any way they wish. It's their house. But to put a wooden floor, a wooden laminate floor in a bathroom is asking for trouble, because laminate is only a thin piece of wood which is on top of MDF, which is medium density fiberboard, which explodes when it touches water. It just expands, you know, absorbs the water like a sponge. So far we've not heard back from them, but we will see. I mean, I even offered the landlord, because the landlord originally contacted us direct, they didn't go through the agency. And I said to the landlord, look, if you need to wash the carpet, you need to have it shampooed, get it done, more than happy to contribute towards your costs. I don't feel we're obliged to, but just to be a decent person, we'll do that, seeing as we actually caused it, whether it was our fault or not. The next thing we hear is that we get the agency giving us a very formal kind of thing, saying that, you know, this is the problem, you know, they might take it further, whatever. I said, look, these are the things which happened. I don't feel in any way, shape or form, and we strenuously refute any claim against us. So we shall see. And we've used this agency many times before, so we're kind of a regular customer. So I don't know if they keep any kind of history and they can see that we've never had issues before. So I don't know. Hey, Steve and Kathy. Yeah. Yeah. No, I've transferred over. You can transfer me later. I don't think because I've set it up to go with Apple Pay, so I don't work out. I'm not setting up anything now. Alright, I'll let you know. Bye. There's always an element of worry when you're using a tapered bit like this, is that it's quite flexible, so ouch, it's hot, that it won't run through. So that's something you just have to do with practice, and only do it bit by bit, don't do too much in one go. You drill a bit, withdraw, clean the bit, and you set your lathe so that the quill is quite stiff, so that it stays true. But again, you find your way along with your lathe, each lathe is different. Hey Crazy Leg, how you doing? I'm not sure if I've seen you on here before, welcome. So we've drilled almost to that end. I'm now turning it around. I'm going to face off this end, and then I don't want to face it off too much because I've measured the drill so that it's short by a certain amount, which is just right for when I want to do the slot. So I'll just face it off enough so that it's faced off, so that it's square, and then I'll drill from this end, and hopefully it'll meet the draft hole that I've already drilled, all being well. Quite a lot of work is going to have to go into shaping this because it's so wide when it comes to the actual bit itself, the button area, because I've got to make it narrower, but it'll be interesting. Cliff, how you doing? Hope you're well, me old mucker. Off to go and do a bit of masochistic work, drill somebody's teeth. Work if you can get it. I don't worry too much about facing this off 100% because it's all going to get reshaped anyway because I'm making a button. It just wants to be square enough so I've got a good starting point for when I create the button. You have one of my pipes, cool. Do you know which number it is? I always like to, when I speak to people, they tell me they've got a pipe, I like to know which pipe it is. So I don't recall your handle, so it's nice to get reacquainted. Doing well, Cliff. Happy to be back making pipes. Okay, that's beautiful. It's nice and lined up. So at this point I'm ready to put the block on. Yep, that's beautiful. A nice ebonite block. You look at that floral kind of pattern there. It's a brown black. Very, very nice. Look at that. There you go. You can see straight through. So this pipe cool. So this pipe, as I say, it's based on a Sexton Everson shape, but really I think the attractiveness of the pipe is going to be in the faceting and the stem work, hence going with a hand cut stem. And that's what really attracted me to the shape. I've got a database of shapes which I keep on my computer. Anytime I see something which interests me, I keep a record of that and I save it on a folder which is pipe shapes that I either want to do or be inspired by, and this is one of them. I've only got one picture of it. I've only got one sort of side view of the pipe, but the pipe's obviously got a lot more going on which I'm going to have to imagine myself. It's a oftentimes, let's say I'll go on the Danish pipe shop, see a shape that I like, and on the Danish pipe shops they'll have pictures of all the sides, so I can get a really good idea of what the pipe looks like from all angles. But this picture I must have taken, I don't recall when I took it, but I must have grabbed that off the internet, and it was just literally a single view of the pipe, and it doesn't give me that much information, so a lot of it I'm going to have to, as I say, reimagine myself. But what grabbed my attention was the stem. And I was toying with the idea whether to use silver or horn or anything like that, and I decided that the beauty of this pipe is in the stem. I don't want to subtract from that, I don't want to take away from that, and So it'll have a certain arty kind of look to some of it, but it will also have a classical feel because there'll be no adornments on it. It'll just be briar and ebonite, and so I'm quite excited to see how that all works out. Don't know how this happened. I was talking to you, Cliff, and for some reason my phone seemed to think that I was sending a text, and it recorded and started typing. Cliff, how you doing? Crazy. God knows what the other phones are doing in the background. Well, I'm glad to hear that, Crazy Leg. You'll have to let me know your name because I can't keep calling you Crazy Leg. So usually when I'm first starting off work on the shank face, I like to put the quill in, and it just goes in a millimetre or two into the block, so it just gives me extra stability. The main reason for that is that if you look at this, usually when you're turning something round, you're cutting away at it and it's no problem, but here you're cutting away at 4 sharp edges and you're banging on it, tick, 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 and that just can knock the block out, even though I do it really tight, but it's just an extra bit of security. Keep things in place. Chatter is actually 4 corners knocking against the chisel at high speed. Once it gets into the round, you'll hear the difference in the noise. J. I will try to remember that. I can't promise that I will. So I haven't taken it completely to the round. There's a flat area here because we're going to flatten that anyway, because there's going to be a facet there. So I'm not too bothered about that right now. Might take it just a little bit more. just going to face it off. And we can go in a little bit more that way. Excuse me just a second, folks. Height 482. Hey, Papa Bear. Let's see, yes. Oh, that's, yeah, that was a nice pipe actually. Slightly different to what I normally do, but nice. Yeah, that was 482. Nice. that got loose. Happens sometimes. Yeah, that shape would certainly lend itself. Just checking. Nice. When you're drilling, you want to make sure that that hole is completely steady and there's no wobble effect. If there's a wobble, then you know you're not straight. Your block is not true. Sometimes you're in the middle and you see a little bit of a wobble. There's really not much you can do about it, but as long as it's not wildly off. Right, so now we get to check the stem with a filter in there. Morning, Patrick. So the filter actually goes in to the stem quite a bit, so we don't need to drill all that much. So I'm actually going to change bits with a shorter marker on it. That's about right. Now this shouldn't really need much of a countersink, so I'm only just going to touch it because I've countersunk the stem. So on these tenons there's a little flange at the bottom, and so you need to countersink it so that that sits into the shank well. But what I've done is I countersink the stem so that the flange also is countersunk into the stem, so it should be a very nice straight flush fit. I like to do a very little bit of a countersink so that when you're putting the stem into the pipe, it's an easy, it just glides in, and that way you're not sort of battling to get the positioning right. You just find it because you've got that countersink. Just makes it easier to use. You don't end up bashing the tenon around. Right, now we'll see if it fits. And that's beautiful. Perfect fit, no gaps. Lovely. I don't tend to mess around with that in terms of smoothing it or anything like that, because that becomes difficult to then match it up. I just leave it as it is, leave it rough, and unless it's an exposed shank face, so if it's wider than the stem, so then I'll polish it so that it looks nice, but otherwise I just generally leave it. That little sort of slightly abrasive edge just helps to marry with the face of the stem. Right, next is we have to do the draft hole. So the draft hole is on a second axis, so I reposition the block. So there you can see the two lines. So that's the drill line that's the axis for the shank, and this line is slightly tilted so that the draft hole line is higher, so that we have plenty of briar underneath the draft hole, so there's no danger of burnout. You can't always do that, but I always try very hard to make sure that there is enough room for a second axis so that there's no chance of burnout at all. Under normal circumstances, obviously if somebody's going to be stupid and go in an open topped car, smoke a pipe, it's going to burn out no matter what you do. If you're in an open topped car or on a motorbike and there's no protection at all, so this thing is like a furnace, so in those circumstances it would be very hard to ensure that there's no burnout. You'd need a wind guard or something on there. I'm going to do a tapered bowl on this one, even though the walls are thick enough, because it's an egg sort of shape, so the walls are getting wider and wider rather than thinner, so there's no issue there. But I'm going to do tapered simply because at the bottom it's as you get to the bottom over here, it does come back in, so I'm going to use a tapered bit so that also again ensures that there's no burnout. I also position them when I do the second axis. I do my best to ensure that there's no keyhole. There's nothing wrong with the keyhole, but I just find it's neater, and if I can do it anyway to prevent the keyhole, I much prefer to do that. It's dead center. Because you're working on different axes, it's not always easy to get it dead center, but if once you get used to it, you're used to the angles and you do it repetitively, pipe after pipe, you get used to it. It doesn't always work out, and with 9mm pipes it's not as essential as with non 9mm, but still, you always want to get it essential if you can. Yeah. So there's not really going to be much in the way of shaping. Maybe just the first sort of do I want any shaping at all? Perhaps just the first third, maybe. But I've got to be careful so that I'm not taking off too much material. We'll have to see about that. I might just do just the rim. Hello. Ah, fantastic. Very good. How's the flight? Very good. It's smooth up and down? Very good. So the train goes from the airport? Very good. Alright. So we shall be in touch. I'm sure you'll have some nice scenery along the way. You got a camera? You haven't, have you? That's a shame. Maybe not another time. Alrighty. Enjoy. See you. Bye. My son was just on a plane. He's just calling to say that he's landed. He's gone off to study in Switzerland. So that's fun. He's now got a train journey for a couple of hours to where he's going, so he should have some lovely, beautiful scenic routes on that train. Kind of envious, really. I was in Switzerland the last time when we actually went on any scenic routes was a long time ago. I mean, the Zurich trip that I did a few years back was just literally Zurich. No travelling as such, because it was a working break, but I was doing a wedding there. But many years before that I went with my family when my family was a lot smaller, and it was beautiful, really beautiful. On the flip side, our holiday last week, some of the scenery there was just on par with some of the Swiss scenes. smell. You often get a really nice toasty kind of aroma, which is very nice. That'll do nicely. Hey Alex. Might have to rethink this a little bit. Haven't got enough meat on the bone there really, on that side for faceting. Good job I went with the tapered bit, because the thickness of the wall is not so much of an issue other than the outside, trying to get enough on there. I might have to do it crossways like that instead of the way I wanted to do it. there is already a shape there which I could just continue. It's like that could work. See you, Jay. Thanks a lot. I think I'm going to have to hand shape this. I'm going to have to leave it as it is, I think. I might have to go with a similar shape as I did yesterday. Not sure. That's the problem there. I'm trying to get past this little thickness isn't the problem, it's just the shape. Okay, so I mean the facet's going to come up there and there. That might be just about enough. Maybe do a fraction more. Hopefully we're good. Yeah, I mean that will be done by hand. Thanks, Mike. Good to see you. Hope you're well. That is the plan, to do that. Once I've got the round shape, then I'll just take off the sides a bit to make it oval, and then get that panel going, that strip going around the back and over there. But that's still a little bit wider than I wanted there. But I think I'll be able to smooth that off. Okay, I think I'm going to leave that there. Not really smoothing it down, just trying to just clean it. It's going to get reshaped anyway. I just want to see what I'm dealing with. Okie dokes. So that's what we have at the moment. Let's see what we can make out of it. It is always a bit of a challenge positioning you, because you're kind of teetering on the edge of the other lathe here. Hopefully. That will stay there. Right, I'm just going to the little boy's room. Be back in a sec. Morning, Bright. The names in the hat, all of them say Simon on it, yeah? Don't forget. Ah, thank you, Mike. Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit similar, although this isn't quite what I had in mind, but a bit similar to my Sporty, similar kind of idea. It's in that vein, same kind of idea, but yes, thank you for that, Mike. The actual challenge for me on this one is going to be the stem. I want that to be something special.